Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's meeting of Baltimore City Commission on Historic and Agricultural Preservation. I call this meeting to order at this time, 1:45 p.m. My name is Harry Spikes. I am the chairman of this commission, and from my left, I would like everyone to give their name, and then, of course, CHAP staff give your name as well.
Eric Holcomb, Executive Director.
Peter Morrill, Commissioner.
Nicole Battle, Commissioner representing nonprofit developers.
Catherine Good, Commissioner. Councilman, do you want to go?
John Bullock, City Council Representative to the Commission.
Sarah Langmead, Commissioner.
Kafal Land, Commissioner.
Myra Mendeleev, Commissioner.
Tamara Woods, Commissioner representing DHCD.
CHAP staff?
Lauren Chiswick, CHAP staff.
Rachel Donaldson, CHAP staff.
Eddie Leon, CHAP staff. Anthony Stewart, CHAP staff.
Okay, thank you all. The CHAP mission is to enhance and promote the cultural and economy of Baltimore through the preservation of buildings, structures, sites, and neighborhoods that have aesthetic, historic, and architectural value. The goals of CHAP include preserving historic architecture and monuments, reclaiming broken neighborhoods, preventing demolition by neglect, and integrating our city's past into its future. Once again, welcome to all who are in attendance. Want to share just a couple of just ground rules for you. If any of you all have cell phones, which most of you do, if you get a phone call, please take the phone call outside. Put your phone on vibrate or silence. It's up to you. You will commonly see that we have a couple people who have outside applied just to sign up and talk and speak. You'll see me with this gavel. We usually give people 3 minutes to speak. If Harry Spikes does this, that means you got 30 seconds left. I rarely slam the gavel on anyone because everyone's voice matters. But if you go over 3, you'll hear the wood. After that, what you'll also, as well, if you have any conversations that you need to take, please take them outside, and you are welcome to come back in. If you have not signed the list for one of the items that are on our agenda, please sign the list so that we can recognize you and call you up to speak. Usually the people that come up with the architects and also the individuals who have the project, they get a little more time to speak, but for those who want to testify, you get 3 minutes. I saw someone raise their hand. So you are welcome to go outside and check. And if need be, one of our staff can check and see if there's a signage here. Okay. Okay. We doing a sign-in sheet today?
I thought we were.
No, I thought we were doing a sign-in sheet.
We can do
Well,
it.
this is what we'll do.
Yeah.
If there are any people that would like to testify, we'll just create a sheet. We still have time to go over some of the issues, and then you can write your name down, and you're welcome to speak. Sounds cool? Okay, fair enough. Yeah, just pass it around. And Eddie will put the topics of each one we'll be talking about, so put your name, and I will call you up. Last thing I'll say, please forgive me if I mispronounce your name wrong, okay? And then when you come up, just introduce yourself. I would like to make a motion to waive the reading of the minutes.
So moved.
Are there any corrections or additions that need to be made to the minutes? Okay. I would like to make a motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Due process and review procedures. CHAP reviews applications in conjunction with the building permit process of the permit section of the Department of Housing and Community Development. If a building permit application is filed prior to historic design review, the application is placed on hold. Pending completion of the CHAP review process, the review process is completed by issuing an authorization to proceed. The historic design review process is in addition to other applicable laws and regulations and does not diminish the force or urban renewal plans, building codes, zoning codes, etc. It is the applicant's responsibility to comply with all applicable laws, regulations, and codes. Proposed projects are reviewed prior to issuing a building permit. Applicants must comply with the Baltimore City Historic Preservation Design Guidelines in planning and executing their projects. Design review considers the proposed work, taking into consideration the historic and architectural character of the structure and of the immediate area. Applicants will need to clearly explain how their project complies with the design guidelines. Minor projects. In order to expedite the application process, the Commission has delegated review authority to the Executive Director for cases involving minor work. Minor projects must not significantly change the overall appearance or remove the significant undamaged historic fabric. All minor work must clearly meet the design guidelines. Major projects. Major projects may change the overall character, appearance, and integrity of the structure. Substantial building alterations, demolitions, additions, and new constructions are considered major projects and are reviewed at a public hearing. Interested parties should request a pre-development meeting in the Planning Development Department to begin the review process. An electronic version of all materials must be submitted to the CHAP staff at least 25 calendar days prior to the public hearing date. If the application is complete, the project shall be scheduled for a public hearing. CHAP hearings. At the public hearing, CHAP staff presents recommendations to the Commission regarding the project. Following the staff presentation, the applicant may make a presentation to the Commission. Interested parties, including neighborhood associations, have the opportunity to provide public testimony. Following testimony, the Commission renders a decision on the application at the public hearing. Persons aggrieved by the decision of the Commission may seek judicial and appellate review in accordance with the Baltimore City Code. After an authorization to proceed is issued, the applicant may obtain a building permit. The Commission's process is impartial, and staff's comments are evidence that assists the Commission in rendering decisions. I would like to ask for a motion to approve the final agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let us begin. Commissioners, you see that we have on our consent agenda request approval of Washington Hill significant summary and description revisions. Our staff is Rachel. Do you all have any questions for Rachel? Okay, seeing none, we can move on to our regular agenda.
Don't we have to vote to approve the consent?
Yeah, you know, you're 100% right, 100% right. Do I have anybody?
I'd move to approve consent.
So moved.
Do I have a?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Catherine, thank you. Regular agenda. 200 North Holiday Street, Baltimore City Municipal Office Building, AKA Abel Woolman Building. The request is certified local government review a proposed designation of the Baltimore City Municipal Office Building on the National Register of Historic Press. The applicant is the Maryland Historical Trust, and the staff is Rachel. Good afternoon, Rachel.
Thank you. Again, this is a CLG review of the proposed designation of the Abel Woolman Municipal Building to the National Register. If you're wondering where this building is, you could just go to our conference room and look right out. It's very visible, right next to City Hall. The Abel Woolman Building is a contributing property to the Business and Government Historic District, but applicants are seeking to have it individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places under criteria A for its association with historic periods and events, and C for architecture. Even though it is a contributing property, being individually listed provides the property with more protection from federally funded or federally permitted projects through Section 106 process of the National Historic Preservation Act. Okay. So plans to begin the Baltimore City Municipal Office Building started in 1923. By then, it was becoming clear that the city's existing municipal buildings were underserving the public. The public's needs were not being served specifically through the offices available in City Hall. From the outset, the building was intended to house different government agencies that worked directly with residents, including permitting, urban planning, sanitation, and others. The municipal building became the central location where residents directly interacted with city government. City officials selected the location based on its proximity to City Hall, which enabled the new office building to act as an extension of it. City officials also intended for the site to become an integral part to the proposed civic center of the city, which was then anchored by City Hall and the War Memorial Plaza and the War Memorial Building. The exterior has retained a high degree of integrity from its period of construction, from 1923, from the initial design, to 1928, but the interior was extensively remodeled in 1940 and 1960 in efforts to modernize the property. The main lobby, however, still retains a majority of its historical integrity, as you can see here. The 12-story steel frame and limestone office building, designed by William H. Emery Jr., blends different elements of neoclassical and Art Deco in a hybrid style referred to as Greco-Deco. The author of the nomination argues, though, that the building illustrates the Public Works Administration, PWA, modern style, with such claims as, and I quote, "In Baltimore City, the Abel Woolman Municipal Building is a rare example of PWA modern architecture, conveying an overall feeling and association that are native to its era of origin." And I quote, "The Abel Woolman Municipal Building is the district's sole example of PWA modern style," end quote. However, CHAP staff believes that this claim is slightly anachronistic. The design of the building began almost a decade prior to the passage of the PWA, which was established in 1933. And the final designs of it came out in 1925. The same year, actually, was the construction of the War Memorial Building. So we think that it actually anticipated the style of PWA modern, but it wasn't actually a PWA project. So it's the opinion of CHAP staff that this would not only be a more accurate claim, but also makes an interesting point about architectural change over time. By delving into this some more, the author would be able to address the architectural criticisms. The initial design of this building received several criticisms, notably by Louis Mumford, mostly complaining that it didn't look enough like the War Memorial Building. They're like, why does it look like that? That's great architecture. However, this style, the PWA style, if you look at the kind of fenestration, the fact that it's constructed in limestone, and it's very kind of simple in its design, that becomes the design under the PWA for municipal buildings. So it's a pretty interesting argument to say that this is anticipating what would become municipal building construction, styles in the 1930s, and it would also just be more accurate. So with that, we recommend that the staff recommends approval of the nomination because it meets criteria A in reflecting the expansion of municipal services in a growing city, and for C, for its illustration of interwar American architecture, specifically as a precursor to New Deal PWA modern. Staff also recommends that the researchers strengthen the architectural significance argument, explaining how the design of the Abel Woolman Building anticipated the style elements of PWA modern. Any questions?
Rachel, thank you. Do we have any questions for Rachel? Okay, Rachel, is there a member from Maryland Historical Trust here that would like to speak?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Thank you. Can you go to our recommendation page? Is that
sorry.
it? Yeah, there it is right there. Cool. Commissioners, is there any conversation you
there are
all would
people.
like to have about? Yes, ma'am.
There are people who would like to testify.
We don't have a list, but do you all have anyone here that would like to testify?
Jackson Gilman Ferlini and John Southern with
Come on.
Baltimore City DGS. John Southern is the author of the nomination.
Thank you. Yeah, so
And John, do
Maryland,
me one more favor. Give me your full name for the record. Yes.
I'm Jackson Gilman Forlini with the Baltimore City Department of General Services, and I'm joined by my colleague John Southern, also of DGS, who's the principal author of the nomination form. So I'm going to turn it over to John to say a few words since he's really.
Everybody would sound like a transformer.
That's the sound of an anxiety attack, I think, or something.
Okay. The reason why we're here today instead of MHT, DGS is the owning agency on behalf of the city. So we took the initiative to prepare and submit the application to MHT, and then MHT forwarded it to CHAP as part of the CLG process. So.
Thank you.
So worked pretty hard on this. As anyone who's in preservation knows, the National Register nomination is kind of a big rite of passage and a big lift, as you called it, a big lift. And so it's a gratifying process to see it full circle and actually get it over to the trust and have them in agreement that it should go to the Park Service after the SHPO signs off on it. But as per what you were talking about with my description being anachronistic, I did But I went over that with at the actual Governor's Commission hearing, that was noted by Dr. Longstreth, and he said, basically strike that from your, because it does predate Franklin Roosevelt's era. In all my research, I didn't stop to think about whether that was Roosevelt's time or not. I just thought, this is that style. I could see it by pinning the tail on the donkey, so to speak. And so what you say about it being anticipatory is a really nice addition to the package of language that could go into the section of the statement of significance. I think that would actually remedy any kind of controversy that's going on with it. It would allow me to say, hey, I do believe that has PWA in it, but it also would satisfy Dr. Longstreth in acknowledging that that would be anachronistic to call it PWA modern. So with that, I could take questions from anybody that has them. If not, so be it.
Catherine?
Not really a question, but I just want to say I know how much work goes into these, and I think you did a really good job, and I agree with staff's one suggestion,
Yeah.
which honestly, from a whole National Register nomination to come out with kind of one suggestion means you did a really solid job, so good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated. And got to thank the Governor's Committee, too, for all those revisions they demanded before I got to the final draft.
Peter?
I was just going to say the
Yeah.
same thing. I've always admired this building, and I really enjoyed reading more about it, so thank you.
I was fortunate in the sense that the Baltimore Sun had such a wealth of reporting on it as it was happening. I mean, without those newspaper articles, I really don't think I would have been able to cobble together something that was so coherent and active in synthesis of different bodies of information. I really think the Sun really came through in that way because there wasn't a whole lot of other documentation on it, especially as the building was being designed and constructed.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner, any other questions? Okay. If not, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you both. Laura, you can take us back to our recommendation page. Commissioners, before we render a decision, is there any conversation you all would like to have amongst each other?
I have a clarification question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this something that we just do a recommendation on, or do we need to do an official vote for approval?
Vote for approval. Yeah. Based on staff's recommendation.
Okay. Sometimes it's guidance, so
That's all
I
good.
wasn't
That's all good. Peter, go right ahead.
If I could move on staff's recommendation?
Yes, sir. Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Appreciate you.
So who seconded that?
Me, Catherine.
Okay, thank you.
Next on our agenda, 2122 Boyer Street, Butchers Hill Historic District. The request, concept review, construction, 3-story row house. The applicant is Nate Patel. Please forgive me if I pronounce it. Pretel. Okay, thank you. The consultant, and the architect is Justin Seto from Seto Architects. And of course, staff is Eddie.
We're having more computer problems.
Imagine if you will.
Eddie's something else, man.
Just relax.
While we're waiting, this is the sign-in sheet for this item on the agenda. Is there anyone else that wanted to sign that did not sign? Okay, thanks.
All right, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, we have for your consideration 2122 Boyer Street in the Butchers Hill Historic District. It requests as a concept review to construct a 3-story row house. Applicants Nate Pretel, architect Justin Cito. I am the staff. The property in question is located here at 2122 Boyer Street and Alley Street at the southern edge of the north section of the Butchers Hill Historic District. The property is specifically one of 2 lots that abut Boyer Street and are at the southern edge of this part of the district. Noted on the map over here, we see the property highlighted by the arrow. The site has not been reviewed by staff or commission since the creation of the historic district. There's no records in our files of any previous actions here. The site here on the left is, there was a single-story unknown structure in 1914, and then through the 1950s, that structure remained. By the time the district was created later in the 80s, 70s and 80s, the building no longer existed. Here we have a view looking from the west to the east. The arrows pointing to the empty lot that now exists with some tree and shrubbery filling the site. This is from the north looking south. Outside of the district, the lot looks onto the side elevation of a blank wall of a new construction that was built outside the district. This is a view showing the lot again, looking westward. And we see how it fits within the context of the inner alley streets of this section of Butcher's Hill. And then looking north, currently, this is how the site looks. It's mostly a cleared site and has not had a structure in numerous years. These are some of the surrounding context photos looking to the east and then looking to the southeast. Looking north at an adjoining property is another large lot space, and then looking directly south, we see the wall of the new construction. Here again is a close-up view of the lot in question that was there. The proposal is the applicants propose to construct a three-story frame row house with a brick facade and front-loading garage. The building will cover a full lot. It'll be 3 stories tall with a brick facade, entry door, and 1 bay garage door at grade. The second and third floors will have 1/1 windows, and the facade will be capped with a simple contemporary brick cornice. The 3 elevations will be clad in a cementitious lap siding. East elevation, which abuts the unnamed alley street, will have evenly located 1/1 windows. The west and north elevations are located on the property lines and thus cannot have windows as per fire code. Instead, it would be blank walls clad with cementitious siding with an alternating colored bands between the floors. A wooden roof deck with black metal railings will be set at the rear portion of the flat roof and will be accessed through a roof hatch. Mechanical systems will also be located on the roof due to the full lot coverage being proposed. This full lot coverage issue is one that the applicants will be taking before the BMZA for review. There have been some questions by the community about the order of review, and for the past several years, BMZA has been deferring to CHAP to review first before coming to them. So here we have the
So it's 4:30.
All right, I'm going home. I was doing my part. I was rolling.
Oh,
Yeah, the audio's
the
back
mic
on.
is back on.
Yeah, your mics are back on, folks, so just FYI, it's being recorded on WebEx.
So we're back live now?
Except for the screen material.
To get the screens back up, the audio is back up,
Okay,
so.
so we should quiet down.
Something is happening.
WebEx stayed connected?
And what about our lights? Okay.
I turned them off, so I did that. That was me.
Okay.
That was me. That part was me.
Okay.
No, that part was me, but
Seconds.
All right, Eddie.
All right, thank you. Before we were rudely interrupted. Commissioners, here's the site looking westward. We see the empty lot is unique within the city, having a almost double alleys surrounding it. The view looking north, it looks north to a building that faces actually Baltimore Street here. Looking east and southeast, and looking north at the abutting empty lot and the houses which are facing on Baltimore Street, and then looking south at the new construction. Here, a close-up look of the entire lot. Proposal, I believe I was going through that. This is the, okay, so the front elevation is shown here. The applicants had originally come up with a more ornate structure. In conversation with the staff, we were able to bring them to design something that was more compatible with a contemporary version of a row home that could be distinguished as a product of its own time, meeting the CHAP criteria. The rear elevation, because it's built on the property line, here shown is basically a blank cementitious wall. It is separated visually with some bands of alternating colored siding to differentiate it. The east elevation here shows the fenestration patterns and the 1/1 windows and casement windows that are being proposed. The cornice is a simple brick-style contemporary cornice. The small deck is located at the top of the roof and set back. It's accessed through a roof hatch. The west elevation is the next one here. It is on the property line once again and cannot have anything. This illustration is a cross-section showing the property in question at Boyer with its true dimensions. The property on the left are those that are from East Baltimore Street. Looking down toward the right, you're looking down Duncan, and you see on the other side the properties that face Collington Street, and then you see the new construction here on to the right on Duncan Street. The proposal is a couple of feet higher because of the elevation of the site. The applicants have also provided this shadow box showing the proposed massing in total of the property, of the proposed property here. Application of the guidelines. CHAP Staff applied the following sections of the CHAP guidelines: 2.1 guidelines, guiding principles of new design, 2.2 site design, 2.3 scale and form, 2.4.1 building entrances, 2.4.3 garages, 2.4.5 roofs, 2.5.1 doors and windows, 2.5.2 materials. The proposal primarily does meet the majority of the CHAP guidelines as guided in each section, with the caveat being the massing proportions of the north and west elevations not fully meeting the CHAP guidelines in terms of its form. The neighborhood comments, as mentioned in the briefing section, the neighborhood is requesting a postponement of this hearing for the review for a couple of reasons, primarily that of the BMZA zoning hearing. As I explained before, the BMZA has had a continuous process of wanting to hear that have CHAP go first in the review process, and typically, if they've gone before the CHAP hearing, they will postpone and hold off any decision-making until the commission has had a chance to review. But all the letters we have received from the various applicants, and some only just arrived, are in opposition to the proposed construction. There are neighbors here who are going to testify to that effect. Analysis. Staff believes new construction meets the CHAP guidelines for height, scale, and massing on the east and south elevations. The height and massing is no greater than buildings on the main right-of-ways and slightly larger than those in the alleyways throughout the community. The building will not be confused for an original historic building, but reflect that is a product of its time. The west and north side, the west and north elevations are proposed to be built along the property line, which prevents the construction of windows or doors. Currently, the applicant proposes to break up the visual mass of these walls. They will be broken with different colored bands of siding. Given a limited property size, a small setback along the west elevation to allow some windows could be detrimental to the project, according to the developer. Alternatively, through architectural design features, could be used to make the facades more welcoming. This could be the introduction of a mural that is painted on it, or possible recessing the rear portion of the west elevation in order to introduce windows to break up the large solid wall mass. The lot next door might be developed in the future, and any decorative features would be lost once a new building is constructed. Recommendation. Staff recommends concept approval of height massing of the east and south elevations and scale, and recommends that the applicant explore an alternative treatment, either in materials, architectural details, or recessing of the west and north facing walls, and return to the commission for final review. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Eddie? Yes, sir.
Yes.
You mentioned one aspect that didn't comply with the design guidelines. Which one was that again?
That was the massing effect of the west and north walls.
Yes.
So I guess either Eddie or I don't know who should answer this question, but to the point about the order of operations and the variance meeting was deferred or whatever that is. So we're looking at this earlier than knowing that the variance is going to be accepted?
Well, we have typically, and this has happened on other occasions, where the BMZ has met and held off any decision until the CHAP Commission has opined. So
in this case, have they looked or provided comments at all and are
no,
waiting
they
for our
haven't, and they
approval? They haven't
will
looked
in
at
the
it at
next
all?
couple of weeks before the next CHAP hearing.
Okay.
Okay, Tamara, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Just want to double check. So they're looking for full lot coverage?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, pal.
Sorry, and just not to belabor, but the north and west facade, it doesn't comply because of why?
On the issue of massing, because they are solid masses,
You said the
visual
fact that there are
masses.
No windows?
Because there are
It's
no
all just
windows.
solid.
Oh, okay.
It's a solid wall mass.
But did you also note that that's not permitted per code? Because of-
Correct, because they're on the property line, therefore they can't have anything according to the fire code.
Eddie, I was just going to ask, if I'm looking at it right, this property is in a alley?
Correct.
Okay. And so, and then just remind me, so I just know that for our guidelines as a commission, we're focused on the front facades, but this is a historic district issue.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So I asked Eddie just during our little break, just
Yes.
to make sure, because I was a little confused.
Yes, ma'am.
So Boyer is what we usually call an alley street, and then perpendicular to that is an alley.
Yeah.
Just because Baltimore likes to be confusing and have
Duncan.
alley streets.
Understood.
Here's Boyer,
Streets and
and there
alleys.
is another alley street.
Right, so it's
access there.
bordered by an alley,
Gotcha.
and an alley street.
Thank you.
Eddie, do we not have a site plan?
There should have been one in the application. I apologize if it's not.
It's not there.
Okay.
There are no plans of any kind, and none of the
But I
elevations
apologize
are
if I
labeled.
did not drop it in.
Mayor she has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so as far as massing goes, I guess my question is about orientation, because the massing of the contextual buildings are oriented a certain way, and the way this one is oriented perpendicularly, it seems out of character. And as far as the massing,
It kind of does, but however, there are other structures along Boyer Street outside of the district and either east or west. So north or top or down the other way, which also have the same orientation.
Eddie, could you go back to that screen? We had the three buildings, and this is just for clarity.
Yeah.
Keep going. I'm sorry. That we're in blue. That we're in blue. Right there. So we're focused on the one in the middle.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But there are other properties in the neighborhood that are in this very unique kind of inner alley situation where they face on Boyer in the same direction.
Okay. Any other questions for Eddie?
Yes.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Sorry, it's just it's a little bit of a little confusing lot. So for clarification, I'm trying to figure out the homeowner that sent in a letter that has an address that fronts up to Baltimore. So when we're looking at, say, this photo, is it the house on the kind of right there that we see?
Correct.
That property there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This house has the other empty open lot here, and just beyond this fence is the proposed lot.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Peter, yes, sir.
I don't know if you know the answer to this, or maybe one of the other architects do. What is the minimum setback for openings to be allowed per zoning code?
3.
3 feet.
I think so.
Thank you.
Double check.
And the architects are here, so there's some additional questions we can ask them.
And the applicant's here with his architect, too.
Okay. Any other questions for Eddie? Eddie, as always, thank you, sir. First, what we'll do, the applicant. Let's have the applicant come up. Is Mr. Nate here? And Nate, if you give your full name for the record.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good
Nate
afternoon.
Prettle. I'm a consultant here on behalf of the property owner, Mike Knopfel, and the architect, Justin Cito. Maybe we could go back to that last slide that we had up with, as I talk, maybe have a little bit of the context here. So just start out, Mr. Chair, thank you, commissioners, for your time today. We're pleased to be able to present what we think is an entirely acceptable proposal that balances many different competing needs for this. One being the need to provide housing in Baltimore City, the second, CHAP guidelines, and third, the zoning implications. And I'm going to get a little bit more into the zoning implications. If I can clarify this procedural question at first. In my experience, it's the zoning board has always asked that CHAP go first, and that was a specific request from the zoning board's executive director in this case as well. I should also note that at the last community meeting, there was requests from some of the community members to postpone the zoning board hearing, which originally was scheduled prior to the CHAP hearing. Based on input both from the neighborhood as well as from the zoning board, we said, okay, we'll postpone that till after the CHAP hearing, and so here we are today. I think as CHAP staff noted, the zoning board, they won't make a decision, if there are still, outstanding input needed from CHAP. So back to the site specifics here. As you know, maybe we get the photos from the north and the south. This is an unusual lot, and there's a lot of discussion here about where is this actually facing. The front lot line faces a side wall of Duncan Street homes. It's a large 43-foot long blank wall. The back faces the back of these Baltimore Street homes. Should note that those Baltimore Street homes, particularly in the corner, are at 43 feet height. We're at 32 feet 6 inches. And if you add the elevation change, those Baltimore Street house will be between 1.5 to 2 stories higher at a true elevation than the top of this property. You see the Boyer Street, 2122 Boyer Street sits in somewhat of a hole. The elevation rises to the north and to the east and is essentially flat as it goes to the west. So you can see the Collington homes, while they're roughly 35 feet, so comparable to our height, they're slightly higher elevation. So this will block those. So in the orientation, and if you're looking at the west wall, this is looking east, west elevation, this blank wall that is subject to some of the comments about massing. The lot directly adjacent to this 2115 through 17 East Baltimore, which goes 150 feet long, 26 feet wide, and abuts this, will likely be developed, in some, so whether it's a mural, false windows, different types of architectural features to break up that massing, that will likely be covered up, and is one of the reasons we don't feel it's appropriate to set this back at all. If we were to set back any portion of this 3 feet, sooner than later, you'll have windows 3 feet away from another blank wall. The CHAP guidelines for site design, require meeting the characteristics, buildings set towards the property line and spacing. This is a row house neighborhood. These are built to the lot lines on all sides. Also, the zoning requirements dictate the massing of this building as well. We have an all-street parking requirement. Everybody knows Butchers Hill, like many of our row house neighborhoods, have issues with parking. So it's pivotal and also a zoning requirement to provide all-street parking. Well, what does that do on a lot that's only 50 feet deep in itself? You have to put the floor area for someone to live somewhere. So if we were to remove the off-street parking, we would not be in compliance with zoning and likely not get approved. That would lower the height of the building. We think this was, talking about the balance, the most appropriate, proposal that we landed on, because it complies with off-street parking. It's significantly lower than the properties to the north, and as you see, in it itself faces a blank wall across Boyer Street, which is not in the historic district. This is the last property in the Butchers Hill Historic District, both on the sort of south side and the east side of this. So if you were to cross either Boyer or the alley street between the Collington homes, you're no longer in the Butchers Hill Historic District. I'm going to ask Justin Cito, the architect, to comment, and I may reserve a little bit of my time, towards the end, if that's all right. Thank you.
And for the record, Justin, just your full name.
Yeah. Hi, Commissioner. My name is Justin Cito. I'm the architect for this project. So we're here to discuss this 3-story new dwelling in this neighborhood, and I think it's the mass, height, and scale fits in this area. I mean, this lot used to have an old building that was demolished, according to Eddie's record, and I think it might be a carriage house or might be something of a structure that was more than 1 story. So it is something. The orientation is it is how it was planned for these longer lots. A lot of these lot of buildings, the bigger buildings in Mount Vernon, also have really long lots, and they have like carriage houses at the back, and some of them has been, divided up into separate residences. So we feel like this is a really appropriate building in this site. And also for a new building to be put into this site is also like someone like my client has invested, to actually put in a new structure. It's also like really good for the neighborhood. It's not just, getting an old building and renovating it. They're actually putting the money to build a new structure here. The height-wise, I think we are not trying to overbuild it, and because of the slope of the site, it's like tucked into the area here a little bit. As we all know, most of us who live in the area, I live in Fells Point, going up Pedersen Park is a really steep slope. And it shows here that it's a big drop from Baltimore Street all the way down to Eastern Avenue. And that is why our building is even though it's 30 feet, 32 feet, it's actually significantly lower than the building in front of it. And in terms of the massing, the visual massing, we're trying to work on that with CHAP as well. I think not having windows, having windows is not possible because of the building code, but we have proposed either doing murals, or I think what I like to do is to have some metal trellis that is attached to the side of the blank wall, so we can have some kind of planting growing to make it a little bit more green. And those are easily removed if the next door lot has a new structure going up. They can just build up right up against it without causing any problems for anyone. Sometimes having a mural out there, having it cover up, it's not very good for the artist, and it's just a waste of money. So having something like a trellis would totally break it up and also provide a lot of green for that block there. Is there any questions? Any questions?
Do you have a site plan for the property?
I think we sent it to Eddie.
One submitted. I can print one up if you like.
I'd like to, because I'm not getting into discussion. My biggest question is how the building is sited in its immediate context and in relation to the rest of the building. I just need to see a site plan.
I agree. Could you do that really fast, please, Eddie?
Well, I do it. I don't know how fast.
The speed of light.
Mr. Chair, if I may, while the site plan's printed out, Commissioner Leon, this is a full lot coverage building. On this short lot is 17.5 by 50 feet. One thing to note, as you're looking at that, the rear of the 2115 East Baltimore, which directly abuts this, if that lot were to be subdivided, which would meet all the planning department subdivision guidelines, you could build a house larger than this, what we call as of right, without any zoning variance, meet every single setback, bulk lot coverage regulation. If this were, the 2115 were to be subdivided in half, and then you'd have a 26-foot by 75-foot structure, abutting the party wall of this, just to help give a little bit of the additional context. And those are the two Boyer Street lots, one we're discussing, and the one directly to the west.
Just a quick question, just to react to that.
Yes, sir.
I get it that you're going zero lot line, but I just want to know how that lines up with the rest of the buildings, because even those newer buildings to the south look like they're set back a little bit.
Maybe a foot or so. I mean, those are 20-foot wide lots and a 43-foot deep structure. So essentially the same size, actually slightly, I believe that's 880 feet. My math part, it's almost identical. The 43.
But I think it makes a difference because of cars trying to get in and out. And I don't know if that developer had a particular reason to offset to maybe accommodate for that. So I just want to know how all that comes together. The site plan should be very evident.
Go ahead.
My question, my question is right along the same lines. I assume that a kind of parking, turning analysis was completed and that there's sufficient room to make the swing into the garage there?
Boyer Street is 20 foot wide, so it should be able to swing in from the street. So 20 foot is sufficient for a car turn, even a truck.
Tamara, go right ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just doing the math, over here too, and looking at the plat map, and just for the record, want to ask, I don't know which of you all would want to respond, but it seems that you were making choices on which variance was the way to go based on the needs of the client, because the width of the property is only 17 and a half feet. So is that what was guiding, like when you were laying out the floor plan in the space?
Yeah, absolutely. That is one of the primary factors that led to this design. So there's removing the off-street parking here, which is something that providing off-street parking was critical to this. I've been involved in dozens of whether it's new construction or renovation in CHAP historic districts throughout Baltimore, and the number one thing you hear, from neighborhoods is provide off-street parking. So, however, this property could not develop a single-family home in any form without variances to the setback and lot coverage requirements. The lot just doesn't. The zoning board, I've had some insight saying that they are going to treat this for now as a detached dwelling, which you couldn't build anything. It has 10-foot side yard requirements on either side. Part of the reason I don't know that I agree with that application of the zoning code, just because detached dwellings do not exist on 17 and a half foot lots, and that's not what this is an unusual situation. Then eventually, when the adjacent lot to the west gets developed, it's no longer a detached dwelling either. Then it becomes treated as a row house like this and every other property for the most part in Butchers Hill are row houses. Even with the row house requirements, if you apply those from a zoning perspective, we'd still need variances here, and it's choosing which ones. Do you provide off-street parking or do you setback? And even if off-street parking were to not be provided, there would still be zoning variances required for lot coverage and some of the setbacks. Like you said, it's a balance here. This is why under state law variances are able to be granted for unique properties like this. And not even at a BMZA hearing, but I've heard the term unique probably a half dozen plus times already.
Well, Nate, with the respect to the word unique, when there's a picture I'm looking at where there's an arrow that shows a lot, but then next to the arrow is like 3 cars. And so, Justin, when I heard you mention about, okay, we could put some planters or some type of metal structure for planters, but if someone wanted to build a house next to it, you could remove the planters. Am I correct?
Yes.
So as it stands, that area where I see those 3 cars, that would remain there, that space?
Yeah, certainly. There are like trellises that you can attach to the wall. It's like a wire mesh.
Yeah, I've seen them before.
Yeah, so you can attach to the wall, and it only comes out like 4 inches, probably 4 to 6 inches off the wall. So it's and it's just like it's even less intrusive than a planter that you put on the side of your building. So you can have like things grow out along the wall, and if there's something going to be built next to it, just undo the screws.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the depth versus, you said 17, Nate?
17 and a half.
17 and a half. Okay, 17. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And the reason we don't want to set back 3 feet is a lot, but even a little bit, like let's say 12 inches, let's throw a number. If someone's going to build next to us, that's going to create a really small gap, which is, it's really undesirable for anyone.
So, question while with that idea, I get that concept and idea, but technically speaking, if you're building out to the lot line, that would extend over the lot line, which might create an issue. But Rachel, could you back up to, I think the Sanborn was in the presentation? There, you just went right past it. So, looking at the site plan compared to the Sanborn, this is just my question, it looks like the lot division is basically the same or very close to the end of where the previous building was. Am I understanding that correctly?
I think so.
Okay, because there were 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's stopping in the fourth one. But the main difference, if we wanted to, I mean, that was obviously a one-story structure on the alley as opposed to a 3. Am I understanding that correct, Eddie? Okay.
And I think that's an important point here because it impacts the setbacks that will be reviewed by zoning. If this, likely the adjacent lot, when it will be developed and subdivided, it would be further to the north than this one. And I think you're absolutely correct. That's because this is probably the length of the existing structure. And for some reason at that time, that's why this lot was created. And it also impacts the distance from the back of the proposed structure to the home at 2119 East Baltimore Street, which in itself goes further back than some of the others on that block. It looks like it had an addition put on it at the same time.
So even though we have rear setback line, we're at no point attached to the building in front. It's not attached to the building on Baltimore Street. In fact, it's roughly like 25 to 28 feet away from their addition.
Okay, thank you. And can you clarify the stair access to the roof deck? In the elevations, it's not showing any kind of enclosure. The way the plan is laid out, it kind of looks like that. So can you clarify what's happening there for that roof deck access?
Yeah, I think initially we drew like a roof penthouse to enclose the stairs, but like in the latest version, that after we worked with Eddie, we kind of like took that out. So it's basically just a stair going up from the third floor to the roof deck, and without any enclosed structure.
With the roof access
like a
door.
sunken, it's like a sunken stairwell.
Okay.
Basically.
Commissioner, do you have any other questions? And if it comes to you later, we can. I definitely am interested in listening to some of the public comment.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have any other questions, we'll definitely refer back to you. But before I do that, I'm gonna ask the commissioners one more time. Commissioners, any other questions before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. First on our list is Mike. Come on up, Mike.
Actually, with these guys.
Oh, okay. Mike, you're welcome to speak if you want to. You're on the list.
We'll just hold for now.
Okay, understood. Yes, sir. Irene?
Yes, Wozni.
I was about to ask you how you pronounce it. Thank you. Wozni. Okay. And for the record, pronounce it on the stage. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I am Irene Wozni, owner of 2119 East Baltimore, whose parking pad directly abuts the north side of the 2122 lot. My husband, Gregory Dent, and I co-own 2121 East Baltimore Street, which is at the north end of the alley, forming the eastern border of 2122 Boyer. Our group of neighbors surrounding 2122 Boyer have reviewed the plans and drawings for the proposed 3-story townhouse for this lot. We are opposed to the plans for the following reasons. Due to the action of the developer in postponing the variance appeal hearing from March 4th to March 18th, 2025, this design concept hearing is occurring before the builder has even obtained the required variances relating to full lot coverage rather than 80% coverage and no yard setback rather than the required 20-foot setback for a row house. Additionally, we are unsure as to whether or not this structure will be treated as a detached dwelling, which might require additional variances. The drawings in the variance appeal file are somewhat different from drawings submitted before CHAP. Developers' initial drawings include a staircase enclosure on the deck and do not include how the proposed structure would be situated on the slope of Butcher's Hill. And I submitted by email a copy of the 2122 Boyer variance appeal file. And I have a copy here if anybody wants to see it. There are changed circumstances since these drawings were submitted. They include the fact that just 12 feet east of the proposed front of this building, the same developer has built out the first and second floors of 8 South Collington westward towards the lot in question. This has further restricted both the access to sunshine and views of many surrounding residents, causing the outcome of the variance appeal to be more crucial to a discussion of whether or not the plans submitted are even appropriate for this lot. The Butchers Hill Neighborhood Association and residents of at least 24 homes immediately surrounding 2122 Boyer are opposing appellant's variance appeal. Without knowing the outcome of that hearing, what would this board be approving or disapproving regarding plans submitted? That's a question that we have. At this point, we would like to request a postponement of this hearing until the results of the variance hearing are known. Without information on whether required variances are obtained, how would this board know if the size of the plans are approved or appropriate for this site?
Thank you so much. Next on our list is Howard.
Commissioner,
Come on up.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I had a question
For the Miss Irene, come back up.
Sorry. I just wanted to clarify really fast. So you and your husband own two adjacent properties.
Yes, we do. Yes.
One which borders and the other one which does not.
It does not. It's right at basically the north. You're looking at it. It's got the gate right there. You can see right at the north end of the alley. So it's that house, and then the house next to it, which abuts the parking lot abuts this lot in question. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Miss Irene, thank you. Mr. Howard?
Yes. My name is, here. Some copies for you of when he's going to show up there.
Okay.
Of these two. I have to share, and then here's the second.
Okay.
Yes.
And Mr. Howard, if you could give us your full name?
Sure. My name is Howard Ehrenfeld, and I made these two boards to try and help explain the situation here. Let's see which one I want to go for this. Okay. So Thomas Poppleton was hired to map the city of Baltimore and prepare a plan to control the street extensions. His plan consisted of a gridiron street pattern that created a hierarchy of streets, main streets, side streets, and small alleys. The concept had a lot to do with the idea of air and light. And that's really the issue I wanted to talk about, that and about a neighborhood's ability to control what happens in that neighborhood. Butchers Hill is very unique in that we have our CHAPS district, as well as that we have a very cohesive look to the houses. So in this chart here, on the top, I took photographs of a series of houses in Canton, which is nearby. And in Canton, they don't seem to have the same kind of control over what gets built. And this is an example of really how for everything from the rooftop decks to having one house next to something else that then becomes 3 stories next to a 2-story house. In Butchers Hill, we've controlled that much more. And over the years, we've kept a consistent look. For example, in this board here, I have pictures of Collington Street, which is just to the east of the site where it's going to be built. And you can see the size of the houses there are all consistent. They're all 2-story houses, both on the east and west side of Collington Street. Okay. Also, an important thing to see is this particular image here, which shows all the 2-story houses surrounding the house in question in red. And one other thing I would point out, that 2119 most likely originally had that property as an extension of it. That's the same size as the houses on the 2200 block. And so that was just a carriage house that was there at the end. Thank you.
2 minutes, 50 seconds. Impressive. Very impressive. Next, thank you both. Next on our list, Virgil. And Virgil, if you may, could you give us your full name when you come up?
Can I tell a 10-second joke?
Another day and another way. Yes, sir. Yes, Kim, move past it. They're all the same? They're all the same? They're all the same. Okay.
Give you a moment to pass those out.
If you want to set it on here,
What's that?
if you want to set your board.
Oh, very good.
Here, I'll be Ben.
Okay.
That's Vanna White.
Vanna.
Go right ahead, Virgil. You can start.
Okay, Virgil Bartram. I'm chairman of the Butchers Hill Land Use Committee, and I live about 2 blocks from here. I think I'm going to go over this map with you. You've been talking about a plat. I brought a plat that has the whole block. We have about 10 people here right now, and they all live in this block surrounding the subject property, which is here in red. Sorry, I missed a legend here. And then there's all the blue. They are all 2-story houses at the interior of the block.
Mr. Irving, sorry, can you take your mic with you?
Oh, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Is that better? Do I need to repeat anything? Okay. Let's see. You mentioned earlier the summary historic statement for another neighborhood. And in the Butchers Hill summary, it mentions the hierarchy of the, basically the urban design of the neighborhood is very unique and very intact. And that is where you have major streets. Here's Baltimore Street, here's Lombard Street, and here are the crisscross streets, the perpendicular streets are Chester and Washington. And and then you have the alley streets, which have 2-story houses. And that's pretty much all intact, all protected at this point. And you can see here, right, it's absolutely continuous 2-story houses within the interior of this block facing the alley streets. I'll also mention, and keeping it brief, there's some mention of the new construction. It's actually completed in 2006. Here, a developer developed 6 total houses along Duncan Street, and those houses are on 43-foot-long lots, and they have he saw the opposition he was getting to 3 stories. He had originally proposed 3 stories, and he voluntarily made it 2-story houses, and he added a 4-foot setback at the back of the property so that the cars can maneuver into their garages. And so the houses are 38 feet long, but they are 20 feet wide. The subject property is 17.5 feet wide by 50 feet. If they could drop back the backyard setback, then they could do it far enough to allow more space between 2119. And they could also, if they went far enough, they could put parking space in that setback. And then they could actually have a living room on the first floor, like most houses do on the front of a house. So I think this whole idea of setbacks is really a question in my mind, that there are other ways of doing this. Okay.
Quick question.
Virgil, thank you. You have a question from Commissioner Capel.
But you said which property setback, 4 feet?
Those new houses, they were built in 2006, were set back 4 feet.
The four right there. Okay,
Right
so
here.
it's set back 4
That's
feet.
4 feet.
Thanks.
4 feet from Duncan Street?
4 feet from the alley.
You have to specify which alley you're talking about. 4
It's
feet
the
from what
alley,
side?
It's actually the alley behind Collington Avenue.
The alley.
The alley.
Come on, guys.
Right.
Alley.
I have one clarification question too. Just thank you to both for providing a big and smaller prints. That's really helpful. On the, I'm sorry, I forget your Howard. On Howard's, he also notes the one-story garages, and so I just wanted to clarify where you have the kind of the blue. Sorry, I'm trying to point from here and that doesn't work. Where these in here, these are all one story, all on. These are 2-story.
I'm sorry.
Oh, wait, they're 1 story.
These are.
Yeah.
These are one.
Right.
Yes.
All in here.
And
these are all ones.
Garage, 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 garage,
Okay.
garage.
Thank you.
Some of them, there are a couple of houses in there that should have been in blue.
Okay, thanks.
On this, you see in the blue here, these blue means 2-story, and these blues mean 1 story.
1 story. Okay, thank you.
Blue is 1 story, regular blue is 2 story.
2-story, yes. If you want to look at this.
I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Virgil, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on our list, we have Gregory. And Gregory, give your full name.
Good afternoon. My name is Gregory Dent. I and my wife own 2121 East Baltimore Street. I would like to talk a little bit about the history of Butcher's Hill. In the early 1800s, Baltimore City expanded to 10 square miles. And at that time, they hired a surveyor. His name, I think, is Thomas Poppleton. You've probably all heard of the history with this, but basically Poppleton designed street layouts that had main streets, which were east-west streets, north-south streets, and alley streets. And the architect or the surveyor laid out that larger homes would be on the east-west streets, smaller homes would be on the north-south streets, and tiny homes, his words, would be on the alley streets. And Poppleton, I guess, is the one who gave us the alley streets, which have been held true through Butcher's Hill. We are concerned mainly with the fact that the house that is being contemplated here will be 3 full stories on full lot coverage. It will exceed the square footage of the houses in the uneven blocks of the 2100 block of Baltimore Street. It will exceed the square footage of the houses on Pratt Street or on Lombard Street. This is a monstrous new structure set right in the middle of this this square area. It will be the only three-story structure in that whole area. And we think it's totally against the plan that has been traditionally followed in Butcher's Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Next on our list, Brett.
Hi, my name is Brett Potter. Could we go to the side view that had kind of the, yes, this one exactly. I own 6 South Collington, which in this image is just behind the new building. 2 quick notes about this image. One, as Virgil noted, these are the Duncan Street houses that have a very similar lot size, yet have a 4-foot setback, garage parking, and are only 2 stories tall. And they easily sold, so it's certainly possible to build a with a setback and 2 stories on this lot. Second thing on this image is it's worth noting that there's also an incline going away from us looking at the image. So in practicality, the Collington block is almost exactly the same height as the new building, even though it's on a much larger thoroughfare. So my home is uniquely positioned as the only property that directly borders both of the developer's current projects. That's 8 South Collington and 2122 Boyer Street. When my wife and I bought our home less than a year ago, we were drawn to Butchers Hill because of its charm, character, and historic integrity. Unlike other neighborhoods we considered, Butchers Hill has a cohesiveness that feels intentional, and we now understand that much of this is due to its CHAP designation. I'm deeply concerned that allowing a large 3-story townhome, one that nearly maxes out the city's height limit and lot size, to be built on a narrow alley street will have a lasting negative impact on the historic integrity. This project would be the first 3-story structure in the entirety of Boyer Street, and one of, if not the only properties around it to build to all 4 of the lot lines, setting a dangerous precedent for large-scale development that prioritizes profit over preservation. If this is approved, what's to stop other developers from following suit, slowly eroding the thoughtful planning that's defined this neighborhood for generations? On a personal note, one of the things that convinced us to purchase our home was the view of the surrounding historic neighborhood from our upper floor. Unfortunately, the bulk added to the 8 South Collington project has already obstructed much of that view, and a 3-story townhome at 2122 Boyer would eliminate it entirely, not just for me, but for every home on our block. More than just a view, this would mean direct impacts on the quality of life for 11 neighboring homes, as access to sunlight is significantly reduced. Gardens, decks, and living spaces that currently receive natural light will be left in shadow. To be clear, I'm not opposing development on this lot, but there's a meaningful difference between the proposed 3-story structure and a 2-story townhome that would be in keeping with every other home on Boyer Street. A single-story reduction would preserve the views, sunlight, and character of the neighborhood while still allowing the developer to make use of the space. More importantly, it would prevent a precedent that could lead to vertical overdevelopment across Butchers Hill. I urge the board to withhold CHAP approval until the developer revises their plans. This may be necessary regardless, given that they've also requested multiple major variances that have yet to be ruled on. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Hold on. You have to be recognized.
I'm going to ask the question, so you'll be good.
Have recognized. Okay. Go right ahead, Catherine.
So I just wanted to clarify on the sheet words that Howard provided. So these 3 photos that say view from 6 South Collington, that's your property?
Yep, that's from a closet window. That was the best view I could get of the lot. Yeah.
Wait, so you have to go in the closet?
No, the other view is almost entirely blocked by the 8 South Collington bulk that's been added.
Okay, thank you.
The main view that we have.
That was my point, that this one here shows the bulk, and this one shows the red line, the height of the back of his house.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list was Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Ehrenfeld. I'm married to the blue-haired guy there. And I just want to speak with you briefly a little bit about the fabric of our community. I have lived in what's now our home since 1996. One of our members here last night said, "Boy, I just was born then." Really made me feel like I'd been there a long time. But I've been there, and I came to the neighborhood for the real community and fabric of it. And when Howie and I decided to get married, he had a home too in a city neighborhood in Baltimore, but he chose moving to what is now our house because of the community in Butchers Hill. In fact, when we've done progressive dinners, people were always asking me if he was cooking to see if they wanted to sign up at our house. So he just melded in right away very quickly. We live at the top of Duncan Street in Baltimore. What we do every day sometimes multiple times, is we come from East Baltimore down Duncan to where it comes into Boyer, and then we walk on Boyer out to the park with our dogs. This is a very communal site, right there where Duncan and Boyer come together. You know, you've got Burke and his 2 dogs, his neighbors and their dogs. If we walk a little farther, we can see Brent and Emma cooking on their deck. We can talk with them, go a little farther. John's in his backyard. And all of this works really well because we don't have this huge rectangular monolith right in the middle of sight lines or getting together lines or what have you. And as Brent said, we are fine with development. I personally testified in favor of the developer that did the houses on Duncan Street. And we came and supported him because after talking to the community, he understood and agreed, okay, we can make this work with 2 stories. We'll figure it out. We'll do what juggling we need to do. And so we were all very supportive of that project. And so the thing that we most care about is just the bulk, the mass, how it's going to affect our sense of community and interacting. So we thank you for being here and hearing us and hope that you'll help us keep this.
Thank you, Terry. Next and last on our list is Tom. And Tom, give us your full name.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Terranova. I'm also a resident. I'm a neighbor to Rini and Greg. I think my neighbors did a really good job of presenting the issues with the bulk and the massing and all of that. I just wanted to bring a couple of things around to your design guidelines and talk about these objections relative to the specific sections in your design guidelines. Can we go back to that one that we've all been referencing, that one image with the blue? Thank you. Yeah. I think this is a little bit misleading. We've already talked about the blue mass on the far right here, and they're showing that as being the same height as what they're proposing to develop. But the black line there at 19 feet 3 inches, that's actually the cornice line of these buildings, of these 2-story buildings on Duncan Street. So that, we feel, is the line that should be held with development on this property. Your section 2.1 in your guidelines talks about precedent and design precedent. And we feel that that is the most appropriate design precedent because it's a more current, a more recent development in this area. And it's also closest in proximity to their site. So if we're going to follow precedent, I think that should be what is followed. If we allow this development to go 3 stories on this lot, you saw that there's an empty parking lot right next to it. A developer is going to come in there and say, we got 3 stories here, we're going to build these up to 3 stories as well. So I think that's inappropriate. I think finally then, your section 2.3 on scale and form, we've already talked a lot about height and depth and all of that, so I'm not going to go into that. But one thing that wasn't mentioned is building proportions such as floor-to-floor heights. If you look at his plans, the floor-to-floor heights on this 3-story building are so small, you're going to have ceiling heights of about 8 foot. Now that is completely out of character with any of the buildings in this area. So I just wanted to bring those to your attention. I hope you'll consider those in your final development, in your final decision. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, can you clarify, what is your address? You didn't mention it at the
2123. So I'm next to, this development is essentially right off my backyard.
Okay, off of Baltimore?
2123 Baltimore Street, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Okay, that will conclude our public testimony. And go ahead, Eddie.
Mr. Fredo wanted to just wrap up, as he mentioned before.
Okay, we'll do that. We have some folks on WebEx. We got to give them a public comment. Lauren, are we ready to receive our members online?
We are.
Okay. And for the record, Lauren, you can ask the question.
Okay, thank you. I have asked in the chat if anyone wants to testify. No one has stated as such, but we do have a call-in user, so I'm going to unmute them and ask them if they want to testify.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, we have a call-in user with a phone number that starts 202-320. Again, that's 202-320. If you would like to testify for this item, you need to hit *6 to unmute if you would like to testify. So I'm going to give you a...
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you, would you like to testify for this item?
I have a quick question. I think maybe just because I came in late to the, when I joined, I was actually here to listen to the item for 739 West Pratt Street, but I wasn't sure based on the website if it was postponed. So I don't know if it is postponed or if it's going to happen next. So I just wanted to quickly ask. Sorry,
it was postponed and it will not be considered today.
Okay. All right. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for joining. Okay. All right. With that, we have no one else on WebEx to testify. Thanks.
Okay, Lauren, thank you. By all means.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate Prettle, just very brief to recap. Again, we feel we have a utterly acceptable proposal that meets the CHAP guidelines per CHAP's staff report. And I'd urge the commission to approve the proposal as submitted with a return to just finalize the details along the west wall. And just last thing to clarify a few comments from some of our neighbors here. We talk about precedent. These Collington homes, there's a lot of talk about the reason for the bottom is the CHAP district. They're not in the CHAP district. The Duncan Street homes are not in the CHAP district. And to be clear, if this home were to be built, they'd be looking at a 30-foot plus blank side wall. So I think to call those homes 2 stories is disingenuous. It's really a 2.5 story. It's got a 30-foot, 2-inch top. It has occupiable space on the 3rd floor. And again, this was not in a CHAP district and was approved under a different zoning code that doesn't exist anymore. And I think this the sense of community. That's why all of us live in Baltimore. I grew up in a circa 1795 home in Fells Point, just down the road, and this. Acceptable proposal will not prevent anyone from enjoying, their ability to use their properties, particularly in this inner block, siting here. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Nate, I just have one question.
Yeah, sure.
I consistently heard from community that there's a height issue. So my only question to you both is, after what you've seen here today and public comment, looking at the height, are you all considering that house is on Duncan Street? Just looking at the height, it's just a little tad bit taller.
Yep.
I mean, I don't build like you guys, but I do have eyes like you guys. So my question is, will you all consider, is that a possibility of you considering making sure that the height is adjacent to the houses on Duncan Street?
So I'll let Justin talk in a second, but I think from my perspective, we're already there, and we're in real height between 17 to 20 feet lower than all of the houses from our neighbors here on Baltimore Street. And because of the neighbors that mentioned the grade change as you go up towards Collington Street, the impact is that they're roughly the same as well. The original proposal that we brought to CHAP and to the community had a rooftop stair access structure, which after our first community meeting, we removed, and so that's a reduction in height as well. And I would like to be able to comment on some of the materials passed around, but I've not seen any of the materials that the community has brought today. Just to be fair, everything that we presented, we handed out at community meetings. So.
Ms. Woods had a question.
Mr. Bradley, one quick question, because I believe what I heard you say when you testified earlier is that BMZA is considering this a detached structure.
That's the, and I don't want to put words in Executive Director Witt's mouth, but the zoning board is likely to consider this as a detached structure. From my perspective, whether they consider it a row house or a detached structure, my justifications and arguments are essentially the same. We need these setbacks, and I think it's looking towards the future, when eventually the adjacent lot gets developed, that changes everything anyway. And there was some mention of one-story homes which would look at this structure. They won't see anything once that second Boyer Street lot is developed.
So what BMZA has to consider, whether it's row house versus detached, it's just that the variances switch.
It's the degree of variance needed for lot coverage and setback, which in our proposal is 100% lot
lot
coverage.
size.
And so it's the one variance that we're not seeking here is height.
Yep.
And off-street parking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Justin, you want to say something, Justin?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to a few things from the neighbors. Like, first of all, just the height. I believe the three-story building that we're not building like excessive, like 11-foot floor to floor. We're basically just building it just a normal height. And if you can see from this diagram, we are kind of like the smallest house in that area, other than the Duncan Street houses. And it seems like everyone here in the opposition are from the bigger houses and not from Duncan Street house. So not sure what the problem is. And the thing about light and air, like, we're not blocking anyone's air since we're not even close to anyone's windows or doors, right? So we're away from everyone. So there's no blocking of air. And sunlight, we have done a light path diagram. We've done one for 2119 because we are kind of like closer to them, maybe 20-some feet away. And because since we are directly south of them, only maybe 1 hour during the winter, we have a diagram actually, that sunlight might hit her rear deck. And that's not even gonna hit any windows, which she has like 2 windows, they have 3 windows, 2 windows and 1 door in the rear addition, the middle part. So we're not gonna have any sunlight casting on any windows at all. Only some sunlight in the summertime because the sun is the highest. Between 12 and 1 o'clock in the afternoon during a sunny day onto their lower deck, like one of their 3 decks in that building. And to those neighbors on Collington, there are gonna be some really, like, it's gonna, because they're on the east side, so there are gonna be some shadows in their backyard, maybe at like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 6 o'clock in the summertime. But like it's basically, that's a west sun, and that's not something that is desirable. That's a direct glare into the eye. And I live at a corner building in the city, and that's that time when the sun is like directly into my living room, and I have to close the blind when I'm sitting on the couch. So it's not really any valuable northern exposure that we're talking about here, because our building is south of the closest building, and we're not really projecting any shadows.
It's just a scheme. I think we have a question from one of our commissioners.
2 questions, I guess. One is, where is the sun study? Did you submit it?
Oh, is that one that you showed us, Nate?
As I said before, we have to maintain order. You only speak when called upon. No, once again, okay?
Mr. Chairman, the sun study was prepared by the applicants, but they did not have it submitted to me in time for inclusion to the package.
Understood.
And actually, this is actually a good diagram to show. There's another question. There was a doghouse shown on another image.
I asked that one earlier. They've taken that away.
Yeah, it was eliminated.
Oh, sorry. I missed that.
Commissioner, yes, that was in their BMZA application, which was originally planned, but then they met with the staff and removed it at the staff's request. So the doghouse is no longer in the proposed plans.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a bunch of copies. Oh, thank you.
So as you can see, like the worst sun shadow situations in the winter, when the sun is the lowest, and it'll be on their deck for like an hour during a sunny day.
Commissioner Capelli, any other questions you want to ask?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
No, you're fine.
I
You're
thought I was
fine.
done.
It's all good. Anyone else? Justin, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this point, we're going to go into deliberation as a commission. Lauren, if you could take us to our screen for the recommendation. For those who are in attendance, if the commission has asked for any additional clarification or comments or questions from either community or architecture or from anyone else, we will call upon you to come up, restate your name again, and we'll ask you that question, okay? Commissioners, go right ahead, Catherine.
I'm not sure where to start. I have many things going around in my comment. In my head, words today are hard, guys, sorry. What I am hearing most is that several direct neighbors have concerns about the development. And so my question, and you might know the answer, Eddie, or we'll hear an uproar from the crowd, is has the developer been working with the community back and forth to address concerns? I know they had one meeting, they removed the doghouse above. But I guess I'm just wondering how much back and forth there has been, and so.
I have been made aware they have had 2 or 3 meetings as well as met individually.
Did your mic die?
I'm sorry. Yes. I have been made aware that they have met with the community at least once or twice, as well as individually. The development team has gone, I am told, door to door.
Okay, and as a result of that, my understanding is the sole change has been the removal of the doghouse up on the roof.
Any of the communication from the community has not reached me other than concerns about overall height. Nothing specific.
Okay.
Other than the height and size of the project has been conveyed to me. Only in the last 24 hours or so, we've gotten the minutes, the Butchers Hill Land Use Committee letter, as well as a few other letters that came in yesterday and some that came in today before we could add them to the WIC site.
And Catherine, excuse me 1 second. Eddie, is the president of the Community Association here today?
That's Mr. Virgil Barge.
Mr.
Come on up.
Oh.
Come on up.
Who already testified about
You're right. Mr. President, could you do us a favor and answer Catherine's question related to meetings, how often, what? You don't have to go into super detail, you just need to know numbers, that's all. And speaking to the mic.
I'm not the president. I'm chairman of the Butchers Hill Land Use.
That's fine, that's fine.
And we had 2 meetings, one in which Nate was present, the architect was not present, and the owner was not present. And in the second meeting, the owner did come and spoke to us, but it made it very obvious that there was no negotiation that was going to happen, that our design was locked and it wasn't going to change.
Gotcha. Catherine, do you have any questions for him?
That answers that question. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you. As you were, Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
So for my fellow commissioners, personally, I'm kind of on the fence here. Design-wise, I don't know how everyone else feels, but what I do feel is been vocalized is that the community has concerns and those haven't been addressed. And of course, we know that not all community concerns can always be accommodated on projects. We realize that. But that is, I think, a concern here. And we've had conversations previously that included lots right on the border of districts. And those lots aren't any less important than the center of the district. And so we're at that situation again where some of the development is outside of the district. And so I did just want to point that out kind of for the public, that just because it's on the edge of a district doesn't make it any less determination because it's on the edge. It's still inside of the district. I have a lot of other thoughts, but I'm going to stop there for now.
Thank you, Catherine. Mark, go right ahead.
I just have a quick question, just like for clarification. So there was talk about the variance hearing. Like, what would be the procedure if, like, hypothetically, if CHAP approved this and then the variance was not got? Does that stop? Like, what is the process?
If the variance is not granted, certainly the applicants have to decide whether they wish to go forward, and then therefore modify what they've presented to the CHAP Commission.
Is it standard or is it typical to go and ask for the variance first and then get concept approval?
What we have been seeing for the last several years is that in those few cases where the hearing has occurred prior to the CHAP hearing, the board will hold off any rendering of any decision until after they've heard from CHAP.
Peter.
So I, for one, tend to agree with staff's recommendations. I think the scale of this building is well within what we're seeing in the area. I mean, no, it's not a two-story alley house like the ones a few blocks over, but, you know, for many of the principal streets, you're not going to see this. The thing that bothers me the most is the front-loaded garage, you know, but alley streets might be the one place I'd be willing to turn an eye to that. To staff's comment about looking at the west and north facades, you know, I think the lack of fenestration doesn't bother me. I think the materials kind of do, and that goes with the east facade as well. I, for one, would much rather see some sort of stucco finish rather than cementitious siding. That's just not a material that you see on the sides of row houses, and it really contrasts with the brick facing. So I would recommend that the applicants maybe look at doing brick facing on the east facade and maybe doing some sort of stucco on the west and north, where you don't want to necessarily spend money on brick that gets covered up by infill development. But overall, I'm inclined to support staff's recommendation here.
Peter, thank you. Anyone else? Sarah?
I'm also comfortable with the staff recommendation. I think that we've heard a lot of comment today about the amount of mass that this building would take up in the middle of the block, but the images that we've been shown don't necessarily make a compelling case for that, because they, given the topographical changes on this block and this lot's location that's already set back because of its alleys from most things around it, yes, it's bigger than the two-story and one-story structures that were built there historically, but I don't know that it takes away from the historic character. It takes away from their sense of openness on the block, but that's not necessarily what we've been asked to preserve, and they are a block and a half away from a giant park. So I understand people not wanting to have less light in coming into their house, but I don't see anything that's inappropriate in the proposal. I wouldn't pull the west facade in just to put windows on it. That will make for a skinny house, those are just miserable and they don't add value to the city. But perhaps the north facade could be pulled back a bit.
Sir, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you for your information. One question that I have, and we don't review kind of interior plans and layouts, but was the side, the alley proper, considered for the garage layout at all, or has it only been on Boyer Street? Did you explore having that on the side alley elevation at all? Justin? As opposed to on the front with the door?
You mean coming in from the side of the building?
Mhm.
Yeah, that would create a worse, like, turning radius, plus
Okay.
the building's only 17.6, so it's not even, like, they have to go in and angle it, so it's gonna be a very awkward parking situation, and I don't know if the city would even allow that,
Okay.
so. That's why like pulling in straight in, kind of like a carriage house is what we intended to do here.
Understood.
Thank you, Justin. Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a few things. Initially, I think I didn't have, there was not an issue for massing from my perspective of the project, and I think I don't have an issue with that. I think my biggest concern is the work between the applicants and designer with the community and the case that was brought forth. I feel like the case that was brought forth has got too many holes, in my opinion. That could have been, things that potentially could be brought to light that could help maybe communicate to the community and to us a project that was trying to work with the surrounding and the site context a little bit more. For instance, like not understanding that it's not a requirement, it's a property line, that's their property, but knowing that neighboring properties have adjusted and negotiated certain things to provide a little bit of leeway in order to help the 12-foot sort of dimension of that alley street to get cars in and out. So not saying that should be a final requirement for the project to offset off of the east side, but I would consider that before I would consider the west side. Even if it's, I don't believe that's a 4-foot setback on the other project, on the other buildings. I think this doesn't need 4 feet. I think it could also be 6, it could even be 6 inches to a foot. It doesn't even have to be that much, and I think the project can afford that. But without like a proper survey and a proper site plan that really identifies the corners of these buildings and the lot lines to see really how projects really align and can help each other, I feel like that's a big hole that I wish that was there. I wasn't going to say anything about the sun study until I saw it, and it's like this is a very elementary sun study. I typically want to do a 3-dimensional sun study because it's affecting the neighborhood around 3-dimensionally and all the properties around. So if the designer was very adamant to say this is not a problem, this is not helping me to understand that problem. So if that's really the case, that nobody has an issue with that, then probably shouldn't have said it. But now because he said it, I want to see a 3-dimensional sun study to prove that. I want to prove that now and see it. So part of me is like, I think that, and then I think even the materiality, I agree that with the west and the north, there's really nothing you could do. Maybe the north you could do something. Well, no, it's a little bit hard to do. I'd actually be concerned more about the corner of Boyer and the alley, because if you look at all the different intersections, and this is a very unique street condition because you have actually this kind of cobblestones sort of alleyway. A lot of the buildings that meet these corners are brick on both sides. And it is actually a trait that you see throughout the neighborhood. So I would actually look to see that even if you were to do a building here, whatever height, that I would wrap the brick to that side. But as someone mentioned, if the building owner is not really up to negotiating, then how do I understand that there's going to be a willingness to even work on those recommendations? So my sense, in my opinion, would be to not, this is just me, I'm not going to go with recommendation. I'd say I would table this. I would let them, I would come back with a more convincing package, and I would get them to work with the community again to see if some of these recommendations actually even have any validity. Otherwise, these are very empty recommendations that are not going to be taken for account, in my opinion.
That's good. Thank you, Paul. Anyone else?
And I guess
Go ahead, Peter.
the one thing I'm looking at is we're basically reviewing the scale and massing, which I think I'm comfortable with today. I agree completely with wrapping specifically that deep facade with some sort of masonry. That the siding is just not appropriate. But if we were to approve that, let them go on their way with BMZA to have them either approve it or throw it out or whatever the case might be. And then we can come back and take a look at maybe a slightly better, more cooked design with site plans and maybe some material adjustments.
But my point too is that even for BMZA, for massing and scale proportion, even it's the siding of the building. So massing wise, yes, if most of us are kind of okay, it's okay this way and that way, but it's also how it sits on the site. And if that's approved here, then that's locked in. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it should be locked in yet. Mm-hmm. And that's my understanding of trying to work with the confinement of that site.
So, okay, Pat, listening to you and Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, we're looking at proper site plan. We're looking at lighting, 3D lighting. Maybe say 3D lighting. Let me say the right word, 3D lighting.
Shadow study. It's a shadow study.
Shadow study. Thank you, Sarah. And the facade, because I heard Peter talk about, having continuity with the rest of the buildings around. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's just a materiality question, so
Materiality.
I'd rather see some sort of stucco or brick masonry rather
Yes, sir.
than
So my feeling is that I feel like there's a lot of good recommendations here that I feel are beyond an approval concept design and then just
Yes.
hope for the best.
Okay.
As opposed to come
As
back
is.
with a better package.
Right.
We've taken the opportunity to do this, work with the community a little bit further. Otherwise, you go to BMZA and you have all this opposition. How are you going to get your variances anyways? You might as well work and get this right a little bit more here, and then you have everybody's approval 100%. Then otherwise, if you're going to approve it, I'm not going to approve it today.
All right, Kath.
So I've actually been thinking along the same lines that I'm not necessarily comfortable making a decision one way or the other today. And if we do go to a vote, I don't know I'm not ready to make a decision. And so I do know that we have asked for shadow studies for other kind of center block structures. I think these are always tough when we're building inside of the kind of center of the larger block group. And so I agree with my fellow commissioner there, and I do think that there's more work that can be done to find some path forward between the developer and the community. And that is a big concern for me, and we are representative of our communities, but also of our developers. And so the fact that there's so much kind of butting heads on this is what bothers me most personally.
Commissioner Woods?
I have a couple thoughts and like fellow commissioners, a lot of thoughts. Generally speaking, I think the massing is fine. And how I'm coming to that is not just looking at the, kind of precedent buildings around, but also the livability of the house, right? So I can't not think about that. But looking at the alley and looking at the siding, I definitely hear what Commissioner Lynn is saying. And one of the other things, I'll say a couple of thoughts. Collington Street tells the story of how those houses, and my computer died, so I'm going off of what I saw. But it's telling the story of how those houses negotiate the topography and how you can tell where the basements are and how they step up. 12 South Collington, from the front is 2-story, but it's raised from the back, even though it's deeper, it reads as 3 stories. And so it's telling you the story of, negotiating 2 to 3 stories. So from that perspective, I don't have an issue with the height, simply because that's also the one variance they don't need, which is quite interesting. So where I'm torn is the pressure from BMZA. BMZA wants us to hear it first and make the decision, when in actuality, the determination between a detached or a row house evaluation from BMZA hasn't even been made. And so not even having that information is a little weird to navigate, because it changes which variances the applicant would actually need. So from that perspective, I really do think work with the community. And there's precedent for a 16-foot wide house. You have a 17.5-foot wide lot. And in this case, 1.5 feet might make a difference. 2 feet might make a difference. But I think there's a little bit more work to do, because I honestly think the BMZA hearing is going to be where a lot of rubber meets the road. And I don't want us to be put in a position where BMZA will just say CHAP said, when in actuality, I think there is more work to really be done. So from that perspective, I would in general, I'm fine with the massing, but I would be okay if we postponed a decision today if others wanted to do that, just to give a little bit more time with the community.
Just one quick follow-up on that, just an informal poll of commissioners. Like, is anyone like just outright opposed to full lot coverage on the site? Because I'm not.
Or the height.
Right.
I think it's, unless you're gonna say.
I was going to say, the full lot height gives me pause. I know by right that can occur, right? And they're not even at their height limit, right? But we do regularly talk about kind of the developments and pattern of the community. And as some of the testimonies presented, this isn't a neighborhood that typically has full lot, full height coverage. We see step downs, we see variance in height across the lot, those sorts of things. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the height in theory, but maybe a compromise or something to consider as a way forward would be to step down or step back or something as a kind of path forward. But I'm not designing the project, so.
Go right ahead, Mabel.
Yeah, so just kind of what everybody said, like, you know, Commissioner Guide, like you were talking about earlier, like you didn't feel comfortable approving today. And as I've been listening and reviewing material, I also didn't feel comfortable making that decision. I think Kapow articulated a lot of what I couldn't quite articulate. It's hard to, like, we're talking about approving mass and scaling in theory, but this is a real actual project. And I think we just don't have enough information. So as mentioned before, a detailed site plan, you know, I'm a landscape architect, things connect to the ground. That's a big part of how I understand things in context. You know, we see, you know, a section of like one little area. We've seen some views here and there, but like something like a SketchUp model, something 3D, because there's lots of different heights going on in this area. There's lots of different grade changes going on. And I think like a 3D rendering, and I know it takes money and time to prepare these things, but if we're really going to communicate it and fairly evaluate how the massing impacts the surrounding context, you know, that in addition to the sun study, I think like it was said before, just, you know, come back with a better package and then we can better fairly evaluate.
No, that was perfect. The only thing that I would add, if we don't have this recommendation put forward today, and Eddie, this is just to the staff, I would look forward to be able to see like how many additional meetings with the community took place and what was presented, because I don't want the commission to have to ask the same questions that were asked today, and to just give us a better understanding of what new information we have to make to render the decision. And so that's the only thing I ask if we do not recommend this today. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Eddie. Did the CHAP guidelines say anything about shadows and sunlight?
Not to my recollection.
I don't know if that's in our purview.
Yeah, it will not change my thought about this at all.
To me, that sounds like a zoning question. So I just want to make sure that we are.
Well, for the record, it was brand new to me. It's the first time so that was great to learn.
Makes me want to delay even more.
Zoning purview.
Because if it's the purview of the BMZ, then we need to give them a chance to weigh in on that.
But if we delay, does it go to BMZA or does that delay the whole process?
It delays the whole process.
I don't know that us kicking the can down the road changes the order of operations.
It just pushes them off.
Yeah, and we're talking full lot coverage. I don't really know what more we're going to learn from a site plan at this point.
Sure.
You know?
And Commissioner Woods, go ahead.
The site plan is the footprint of the building.
I mean, it was just my recommendation. I mean, I think everybody has a vote here.
Lynn, it's
So
cool.
I think one thing you could do is just vote on the recommendation and put it up, see what happens. And if it doesn't, at what point does it that you can do another?
You can make a motion right now. Table it.
I'm not gonna make a motion for this one. I don't think, because if this goes forward, I'll probably, I don't know, I'll probably abstain if anything. But
Okay.
But I think it warrants, if someone's gonna move, they should move. And then we'll see, we'll figure it.
Well,
Right, I'm just gonna
to
do
your
it.
point, we should vote on this, see what the consensus is.
So I would like to move on staff's recommendation.
Oh, Peter, hold on, one second, Peter, one second, one second.
Sorry.
I was gonna say,
Tamara has, so she has something she want to say.
Oh my gosh, no, I really wish I would have asked this of the community. But listening to everybody, where the question I have now for the community, so we're looking at full lot coverage, which, I kind of agree is going to be what it is. And we're looking at height. And so in the testimony from the community, there's been testimony. We know there's issues with the height, but there's also been, I'll say, speaking about the full lot coverage. Full lot coverage, from a practical standpoint, it is what it is because of the building size. Now, from a variance standpoint, that changes between what you're legally allowed to do between a detached and a row house. But what I'm wondering from the community side is the issue with the height, or is it, or defined with a 17 and a half wide house? Because that literally is what it is. If that 17 and a half foot wide house was on Baltimore or Collington Street, would you have an issue with that size, that width of a house? Because I don't know that you would have that same issue. And the other thing that I think about is there was testimony for if 2115 Baltimore Street subdivided the rear. So that's a condition we don't know. And that's the thing we don't know. That will be the truth teller down the line. So the worry from the community is this building is precedent setting. And so that's what I'm hearing as well. But in and of itself, it's not much to work with. The lot is kind of the lot size. So if pressed today, I probably will vote with staff recommendation. But if there is a motion to postpone, which I'm still on the fence about, I do think there could be more conversation with the community.
Catherine, and then we'll deliberate.
Just for consideration of my fellow commissioners, I'm okay with full lot coverage. It's the full lot height coverage is where I have some pause. But I think that if we press forward for a vote today, I would likely also abstain. So my question is back to, well, I guess we can just vote and then talk about it. I don't know if we have multiple people abstain and knowing we have a couple people not here, technically.
No, as it stands, we have a recommendation. We got to make a decision on the recommendation. After that, we can then decide next steps for the commission. Nicole, you had something you want to say?
Yeah, just how, if we don't make a decision today, how does it impact the schedule?
Good question. Eddie, can we bring up architects? Okay.
Good afternoon again. So it's my understanding that we cannot move forward with BMZA. We have BMZA scheduled for a week from today, March 18th. That will, if there's not a decision to move staff's recommendation, we will postpone that hearing, and that would be kicked down the line. And I can't say what will happen with the project. Whether I'm not going to put the owner on the spot and ask him whether we still go forward or not. But we would urge CHAP to move staff's recommendation.
Nate, thank you. Ms. Woods, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, based on this, I would probably move to postpone. I don't know if others support it, but I do. I think there's some there and conversations that need just kind of.
So let me say this. Before we go into that arena, is there anything else someone would like to say before we do that? Okay, I'll go down the line. Go.
Yeah, so I just want to, so we talked about whether or not a site plan, maybe we don't need it. We're talking about full lot. Whether or not sunshade is in our purview, I don't know. But I still would like to see something that shows more of that 3D and the context.
Gotcha.
Because I find myself looking to these things a lot, and it's almost like the community has provided more information that kind of explains it than what was provided in here. So
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to have, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Sometimes we see these really flashy things, but something that communicates it.
Gotcha. Sarah? Oh, I'm sorry, Capel.
No, it's okay, Director.
No, you go.
Well, I was thinking that it would be beneficial to see a more fully baked site plan that shows the boundaries of all of the surrounding buildings on all sides. I mean, this is cut off wherever it went. It doesn't even go to all the surrounding properties, so it's not a sufficient site plan. To see that, to see where the pavement lines are, right, so we understand where the sidewalks are and where the building lines are, and then we would all understand the relationship of the building to the surrounding. And it seems like, what I was at first going to suggest about the staff recommendation is that we add that it should come back before the commission for final approval with a site plan, but, is it already there?
It's right there.
Oh, thank you, sorry, I missed that part. But then I wondered if this is the massing, if this is the concept in massing approval, then we can't wait until final approval to change what the massing is. So maybe we just say, come back again for concept approval, deny it today and say, come back with a site plan that we can understand the context out of better. And a package that has all the drawing sheets in one PDF, everything needs to be labeled, everything needs to be right side up. We can't really review what the applicant has sent in. We can, you guys are hired, by the way. So this is reviewable. But yeah, so now I'm thinking maybe we just deny today and ask them to come back for massing approval again.
Okay, Paul, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Do you have an issue with massing, just the general overall massing in the site?
No, because I feel like it's comparable to the surrounding houses, even though in the middle of the lot, the houses have been smaller than the surroundings. I don't know that that's an essential component of the character of the neighborhood.
I mean, one thing that you could look at is to say, hey, maybe make a motion for recommendation of max scale proportion of the massing, right? And just make a more general add to the recommendation that to come back at the next final review with a full package that shows and that there was that shows the address to meet with to address the issues of the community. If it doesn't go well there, they're going to be held up there, right? So I think that could be one way to do it. Is just because I don't think it's just about these few things. It's just I think it's very clear what the concerns are. There's a better package that can come at final, and if that happens, then we can vote for this recommendation. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me. I mean, just everyone going around seems to be generally okay with site, the full lot coverage, generally okay with the height, and I think that could be tweaked some. And I agree, it would be nice to have like a real package of stuff to look at. Because shout out to the neighbors for a really good package here. But no, I think that's all stuff that can be worked out at a more detailed hearing later. But the gist of this, I'm certainly comfortable with.
So should we do that move? Should we move that motion and add that? Oh, sorry.
It's all good. Catherine, go ahead.
So, in general, not specifically this project, what I'm hearing Eddie, you say, and others on the process when it has this and BMZ, it sounds like they almost defer to us. And so that's where I feel some of the questions, and we have no input from them whatsoever. And if we were to delay or reject the proposal today, is there a mechanism where Eddie or someone else could reach out to BMZ to get their initial thoughts? Because I understand why in most cases they want to defer to us in our review, but I do feel like there are some legitimate questions that would warrant their input in this case. And so that's just kind of a process question, if that's even a possibility, or we can't get any comment from them at all.
I don't know that we can get any comment from them because simply they haven't had a chance to review it. The staff recommendation is for height and for scale, with the caveat, the massing is a separate issue that the commission is within its realm to pull out and say, come back for additional review, development of the concept with further material requested. So
So
we
in-
can get them to a second hearing, and then a final hearing could be a third hearing.
In your opinion, we can separate the massing from the height and the scale?
I believe that that could be that's up to the commission.
I mean, Eddie, I just got to say that, I mean, after listening to everyone, it sounds like the recommendation with the additions are, more engagement with the community, more materials. So are you saying there's a possibility we could approve this, but if they come to another hearing?
There's a possible approval of certain factors and then requesting more information to further develop or finalize before going to a final review.
Okay.
I don't know. In my opinion, you got to put yourself in both shoes. I think that's going to drag on. I think if there's an approval here for massing, scale, proportion, and then they have to come back at final anyways.
Right.
They could be blocked there if you needed to, if you don't feel convinced. So I think if there's a general recommendation of like consensus that there's a consensus on the mass, scale, proportion, you might as well move but add the exception about, strike the rest of it, just add a general exception about providing better materials and work with it. That will address the community's concern. That's it.
But we have had other projects where we get to the second and final meeting, and then the discussion leads back to, we actually have somewhat of a massing issue, but since that had been previously decided, we felt like we couldn't revisit it.
I mean, I've seen it in the past also that, let's say the second meeting satisfies all the boxes. You could argue that could be a second meeting, or that could also be the final, considering if they've checked all the boxes, right? So you could pull out whatever you want to pull out. Say it's meeting, 1B of this approval, but also that it could also be a final if everything is taken care of.
Eric, you wrote down a list of items on the last page. If we approve the recommendation with the additions from the commissioners, what would they be?
I don't know if I wrote it down.
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Go, Eddie, by all means.
All right. All right. So they need to come back with an expanded and more detailed site plan, which includes boundaries of adjacent surrounding buildings and pavement lines, a 3D shadow study, explore expanding the east elevation to include perhaps more brick, if I'm following correctly. That was the recommendation, or stucco.
East? Facing the park.
The one that will still be seen all the
It's
time.
facing the park, right?
That's the west elevation, isn't it?
Not the park, facing east.
The alley, I'm saying. Thank you.
This is why we need a site plan.
I think all facades should have masonry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Eddie, was there more?
Yes. Then the question about exploring a setback just on the north elevation, I think that was brought up. Additional 3D renderings from different perspectives around the site. Also to present that same material to the commission, to the neighborhood, once it's been completed and compiled together. And so that what's
Gotcha.
presented to the community and to the commission is one and the same.
Right. So I may ask the commissioners, after everything that Eddie said, is there any objection? Is there anything that we missed or we have to add?
So, just one point, I don't think this needs to get added, but as much as the additional materials need to get submitted to the community, you've done a lot of hard work here, and I think that information also needs to make sure that it gets to the developer as well.
Okay. So if there is nothing else, I'll read the recommendation. Eddie, you've already read the recommendations given by the commissioners. For 2122 Boyer Street, Butchers Hill Historic District, recommendation. Staff recommends concept approval of height, massing, east and south elevations and scale, and recommends that the project explore an alternative treatment, materials, architectural details, or recessing of the west and north facing walls, then return to the commission for final review. You had a,
Yeah, I would strike east and south elevation.
thank you. What should we put, Peter?
I think just concept approval of height, massing, and scale.
Okay.
And then just refer to the list.
Yes. East, so we're striking out east and south elevations, let the record reflect, and then to have the CHAP staff review. And also the recommendations that Eddie shared from the commissioners to also be put forth in the recommendation as well.
And come back for final review.
And come back for final review. Thank you, Kipao.
So is this is assuming that everybody here is cool with the 3-story height?
Well, maybe.
We'll find
I
out.
have not, I mean, I haven't heard anyone raise an objection to that.
Yes.
Because I'm not convinced, and I'm just.
But so if that is the case, because I've heard you say something about shaving a little off the top, but they're already kind of at a minimal
Well-
floor to floor, so.
Hold on,
No,
y'all.
I'm not-
3-story is,
I'm
I
not
thought it was
talking about-
2-story. 3-story, yeah, that's what the up top, what's the deck? Is that?
No, it's
3 stories?
3 stories without the deck.
Without the
Without a
deck. My concern,
Oh, that's right.
my concern was not the total height, the 34.8. It's that it's the total height all the way through the lot. So, that's my concern. Given the context, I think there are areas to explore with not having the full height, the full lot.
But if we approve the recommendation, we're approving the 3-foot height full lot.
Correct.
So if they're coming back to us with more materials,
What's
that going to accomplish?
Would my fellow commissioners be okay with adding an explore option or explore
height?
schemes that have a step back? I don't know that everyone has an issue with that.
I think you just vote no.
Yeah, if you don't like it, vote no. Yep.
All right, and go back to the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve the recommendation set by CHAP staff and the additional recommendations given today by the commissioners?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Wait, can I request a roll call vote as
Oh,
opposed
you
to-
will. You'll get it in.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One. Any abstain? No, I got you. We got 2 opposed. Am I correct? Yeah, 2 opposed.
So who opposed? Myra?
Catherine and Myra.
And everybody else were, any abstentions? All right. So
Okay, the ayes have it. That was a long one. Any old business? Any new business? Commissioners, I want to thank you. I call this meeting to a close at 4:06 p.m. on March 11th, 2025. Thank you all for attending.